he hopes it has the most impact and the most lasting effect of any speech he's given. It is 7 to 9 minutes in length. The title is, The Next 8 Minutes Could Improve Your Life, Really.
All righty, let's welcome Joel.
Good morning, Toastmasters and guests. It's a pleasure to be here and give you a presentation that I hope has resonance. I'm going to start with 6 questions. Don't raise your hand until after I ask all 6, and only raise your hand if anything I suggest might be appropriate or applicable or beneficial in your life. Would you like to earn more money, be a better skier, biker, hiker, in deference to Sue-Ann, tennis player, and be more attractive to members of the opposite sex or the same sex? It's really not my concern. Raise your hand if any of that is appropriate for any of you. Well, I can't help you with any of that. But I can help you improve your life, enhance your life, and make the lives of those around you even better. 3 simple words: letters of gratitude. I am suggesting to you that you take up the extremely beneficial and worthwhile hobby of writing letters of gratitude to people in your orbit. Raise your hand if you are grateful to anyone. Raise your hand if you have a parent or parents that are living. Assuming not an abusive or neglectful or otherwise marginal relationship, the first person or persons you might want to write a letter of gratitude to are your parents. Now, I began this hobby 3 years ago. My mother died 5 years ago. My father died 25 years ago. So I was never able to write a letter of gratitude to my parents. But I have written a letter of gratitude to my wife, and my daughter, and my other daughter, and my sister, and my other sister, and my brother, and my brother-in-law, and my other brother-in-law, and my in-laws, and dozens of friends, both near and far, present and past, business associates, colleagues, those who have done me a favor, a service, or a kindness. I have written in excess of 80 letters of gratitude. And those of you who know me know I've written many books. I've written for more than 100 magazines. But the letters of gratitude that I have written, which are archived and chronicled on my hard drive, bring me as much satisfaction as anything I've ever been paid for. There are only 3 things that are going to happen here today. There are only 3 possibilities. Some of you will never write a letter of gratitude. Some of you might write a letter or 2 of gratitude. And some of you might embrace this concept and begin to write letters of gratitude on a regular basis. Now, I write single-spaced, 1-page letters that are never half a page and never more than a page. If I have a little bit more to say, I shrink the font. But for those of you who might be less verbose, you might just want to take a note card and write 2 or 3 sentences. It's not what you write, it's the fact that you're taking the time and acknowledging someone in your life. There are 4 main reasons as to why you want to start writing letters of gratitude. I'm going to bullet point them now and go back and explain them in detail. Number 1, it makes the recipient feel great. Number 2, it makes the writer feel great. Number 3, it makes the recipient feel great about you, the writer. And number 4, there's a pay-it-forward effect where the person who receives a letter might be inclined to write a letter or 2 themselves. Allow me to tell you how I began this hobby. There is a book that some of you have heard of, some of you might have read. It's called mega bestseller. It's called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff. This is a small book. Each chapter is 2 or 3 pages long, just a couple hundred words. It sat on my wife's nightstand for years, never picked it up. And then one day, a couple years ago, I just idly started perusing it. And I thought it was a bunch of happy horse shit, to be perfectly honest. Kiss a rainbow, hug a unicorn, drop a silver dollar in a wishing well. And then there was a chapter that said, write a letter of gratitude. and it immediately resonated with me. And the first person I thought to write a letter to was not a family member, not my wife. As I said, my parents were gone. But I'm a travel writer, and I have a friend who is in PR, and he facilitated about 20 visits for me. He represents resorts all over the world, and he took me on junkets to Hawaii and Wales and California and Michigan and Mississippi and Missouri, and we became great friends along the way. And I think that very day, I sat down and typed a letter thanking him for all he had done for my career and what a great friend he had become. And when I addressed it and stamped it and put it in the envelope and put it in the mailbox, I really felt good. And I wrote another one probably a week later. And then I wrote another and another and another and another. And then I got my stationery. So if any of you ever get a letter of gratitude from me, which honest to God is very unlikely, that's neither here nor there. The stationery you will receive has an amazing quote. As you open the envelope, it says, "Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it." So that's what someone gets from me when they get a letter of gratitude. So there are 4 main reasons why you want to write letters of gratitude. Number 1, the person who receives it feels good. 95% of what we get in the mail every day, bills, circulars, catalogs, magazines, junk. Do we get an occasional invitation? Yes. Do we get a thank you note when appropriate? Yes. How often do you get an unsolicited, unexpected letter from someone from your present or your past, lauding you, singing your praises, and that person telling you how grateful they are to know you? I've never gotten one, and I'm sure it's pretty rare for most people, so needless to say, it's a day brightener. Number 2, the writer feels good. In the Jewish religion, it's called a mitzvah, a good deed. It's not unlike helping a little old lady across the street or helping someone with a rollerboard, put it in the overhead compartment. When you write a letter of gratitude, it's like that, except it's more creative and it's more permanent. The third reason is the person who receives the letter feels good about you. At our heart, we're all selfish, self-interested people. So it's very nice to know that you're putting an impression on someone, you're making an impression on someone, a positive impression that they otherwise might not have had. And the fourth reason, as mentioned before, perhaps the person who receives a letter might be inclined to write a letter or two themselves. So in conclusion, Toastmasters and guests, write a letter to your mother, write a letter to your brother, write a letter to your lover, and then you'll write another. Write a letter to your uncle, write a letter to your cousin, write a letter to your neighbor, and then write another dozen. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Joel. That was awesome, and I love